because so often people sabotage themselves into sickness and not into wellness, because they get into a state of hopelessness that no one can help me, no one's helped me so far, I'm just stuck with this forever. And so there's no getting someone into a state of wellness when they're in a state of unwellness or destabilization, as we like to say. So half the journey is to prepare yourself for wellness.
Cue music. Places, everybody places. We're starting in 3, 2.
Welcome to the Autoimmune Hour, where we look at the rise of autoimmune disorders. I've brought together top experts that range from doctors, specialists, nutritionists, researchers, and even those recovering from autoimmune to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information about autoimmunity and how to live your life uninterrupted.
Thank you for joining us here on the Autoimmune Hour with Sharon Sayler. Always seek sound legal, medical, and or professional advice regarding any problems, conditions, and any of the recommendations you see, hear, or read here on the Autoimmune Hour, Understanding Autoimmune, and Life Interrupted Radio. Join the Autoimmune Hour's Courage Club. Sign up now at understandingautoimmune.com. Now, back to your host, Sharon Sayler.
Welcome, everyone, to the Autoimmune Hour. I'm Sharon Sayler from SharonSayler.com, and as always, it's my honor and pleasure to be with you here on another Autoimmune Hour, brought to you by understandingautoimmune.com, where you can find over 485, I think we're closing in on 490 shows, maybe. This is the 490th. We're closing in on 500. I cannot believe that. So anyway, I've got a fascinating topic we haven't covered before, and maybe you've met someone who then introduces you to someone, and then it's just meant to be. Well, I recently met someone who shared with me just a whole number of people that are so fascinating in his world, as well as now fascinating in my world. And so I really want to introduce to you Marcus Bird. He is a creator, a channel, and a coach, and he's got an amazing survivor to thriver story for our Courage Club conversations, as well as some fascinating things he's learned along his journey that he now shares with people as he goes about being an amazing thriver to me. We're pre-recording this show because tomorrow, it's Tuesday for him. And it's Monday for me because he's calling in from Australia. So welcome, Marcus. Thanks for being on the show.
Hey, Sharon, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Oh, I am too. I'm excited to have you. I just want to quickly read a little bit of your bio, and I'm going to read it, guys, so apologize if I get too close to the screen for you. After many years in the corporate world, climbing the corporate ladder, Marcus had a life-changing experience and was thrust into the world of healing. I think a lot of us can relate to that world of thrust into the world of healing.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it wasn't something that was on my calendar date either. When Marcus gave himself chronic fatigue syndrome, little did he know that it would change his life completely from corporate Jedi to channel, healer, teacher of the ancient information. And he is a researcher and channel of the sacred ancient Egyptian healing called
Bukra.
Abukra. Okay,
Yes.
thanks.
That's okay.
I know we talked about it before the show, and
Right.
as I mentioned, I sometimes
That's
slaughter the
okay.
English language, but he's also an
Beautiful.
expert in sacred geometry and modern quantum physics. So, Marcus, thank you. I'm so fascinated by how your survivor to thriver story took quite an amazing turn. A lot of times people say, oh yeah, I'm back and doing this and that, and not a lot has changed for them other than this kind of blip, and maybe they're taking better care of themselves. But your
Totally.
life just took like a 180.
Yeah, it totally did. It totally changed and shifted. And if you had told me before this is where I'd end up, I would have said you're being silly. That's ridiculous. Because I was very intent and purposeful in climbing the corporate ladder and doing the right things by my family, my parents, my peer group, and also society. And that wasn't to be.
Take us back to that time when you say that wasn't to be. What was going on in your life, and what were some first inklings like something's different and maybe not so great?
Yeah, it hit me really hard, really fast. If I think back now, I can definitely see signs and things that were unfolding. But at the time, I was fairly disconnected with myself and my body, and I was very much a sort of heads down sort of person, get on with the job, do what you have to do. And I was a pretty sort of tough, resilient sort of person, I thought I was. And so I didn't really notice a lot at the time, but things were changing, things were shifting. And very soon I was to realize that how much and how fast they were actually going to shift. And so I had a sort of a sudden experience, if you will.
Now, I noticed in your bio you say you gave yourself, or
Yeah.
I read gave
Yeah.
himself chronic fatigue syndrome. To me, that's an interesting way to say it. I'm not arguing that it's not true because in thinking about my path, there were so many times and red flags, et cetera, that where I could have made better health choices. So I consider,
Totally.
yeah, ending up there myself. But tell me a
Yeah.
little bit about
Yeah.
the how you realized that it was chronic fatigue, because sometimes that's really hard to get diagnosed.
Yeah, and certainly at the time, we're talking, I don't know, 25, 27 years ago or so. So we're talking a long time ago. And back in those days, chronic fatigue was called the yuppie flu.
Oh, I
And
remember that. Yeah, that
remember
what a
that?
demeaning
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, it had a very demeaning, and a lot of people didn't believe it was real. Certainly, the medical fraternity did not believe it was real, and that led to me losing a lot of friends. It led to a split in my family at the time. Half my family didn't believe that I had anything wrong with me, and I was just being lazy. I was just faking it, and the other half believed me. So there was all these sort of split in relationships, in family, and at the time it wasn't seen as an illness or a disease or a problem. It was the yuppie flu. It was a lazy person's illness, and the doctors that I saw all took copious amounts of blood and decided there was nothing wrong with me.
Hmm.
The advice was there were two bits of advice. One is go home and sleep for a bit. You need more sleep. The other was you're obviously depressed.
I
That
think
was the
most of us,
diagnosis.
yeah, I think most of us with the diagnosis have heard that before.
Yeah,
Sad but true that even in Australia, across the ways, there are similar types of approaches to people with
yeah.
hard to unravel situations going on with their health.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That was a sort of a bit of a shock once that happened because within my body, I was getting sicker and sicker by the moment. And for me, as we were saying, that this thing hit me or felt instantly. I know it was leading up to it, obviously. I was working way too hard. I was a senior manager of a national company and I had staff and I was traveling a lot. I was on airplanes every week. And so I had a fairly high pressure type of job and responsibility. And at the same time, I wasn't looking after myself. I thought McDonald's 3 times a week was pretty nutritious. Why would they sell something that wasn't nutritious? That made no sense. But I was very Western medicine, very that Western sort of mindset that I had no idea at all. So working myself, working long hours, exhausting myself, eating terribly, incredibly badly.
I think the funny thing is I used to travel a lot too, just a real corporate warrior. And
Yes.
oftentimes I too thought I was eating healthy. I would
Yeah,
get salads, I would get other
totally.
things that seemed healthy, not
Yeah,
even realizing a lot of the preservatives that people put on even salads,
exactly.
things like that.
Exactly.
So
Yeah,
even
that's
if you
right.
are eating a whole plethora of things that might be labeled fast food or processed foods, so often until I did the research, I
Uh,
believed the marketing of what certain
Absolutely.
companies were telling me that, hey, this is nutritious. And,
Totally.
hey, it's a salad. How bad can it be?
Yeah, how can it be? So we do salads. It's okay, that's good. But that's obviously not the case. And so I did learn a lot very, very quickly. And I think for me it was the turning point and where I think everything started to spiral out of control was one day I was sitting in my office. I had a corner office overlooking the city. And I had the right car, European car in the garage. I lived in the right suburb. I did all the right things based on society, my economic background, my peer group, my family. And I remember sitting at my desk one day and I don't know what happened, but I was feeling pretty egotistical about myself, pretty what I would call chuffed, which is a bit of an English sort of term. And I just remember this wave came over me, and it was almost like, because the city is on a river, so it's almost like this wave came up the river and washed over me. And I put my hand on my heart and I said, there has to be more than this. This can't be it. I have no idea why I said that. I don't know why that came over me. And it was probably only a week after that that I started to get obviously sick, really sick. And that spiraled very quickly from that moment on to maybe a month where eventually I could not go into the office. I just could not continue. And I had to be on it. I'd had lots of sick days off, obviously, and lots of blood tests, and they thought it was Legionnaire's disease, and then they thought it was this and cancer and this, and all the blood tests came back as zero. And I was getting sicker and sicker by the day. And then I had to make the decision that I couldn't work any longer. And that was a really hard decision. And up until that point, I wasn't very emotionally connected, but that day I came home and realized that the dream, what I thought was the dream, climb the corporate ladder and one day retire, all that sort of stuff, was gone. And I think I cried for a whole day.
Wow, just a day.
Well, probably more than that, but in that moment, I couldn't stop sobbing.
Yeah.
So it was at a pretty amazing moment in time.
I want to go tangential on you for a moment.
Please.
Being a guy, I think a lot of people think chronic fatigue, and I know this is a stereotype, but I'm just throwing it out there, is like the woman's thing. Besides the yuppie flu, I remember when they first thought I had chronic fatigue, it turned out to be another autoimmune, but it was like, oh, a lot of women your age get run down and blah, blah, blah. And I felt they were criticizing the female part. How did it work for you being a guy with all of a sudden having this?
Yeah. I don't think I recognized that it was mainly women at the time. So I don't think the sort of gender thing played out. It was much more the effect of the label that they gave it, this yuppie flu, this lazy person's illness or disease. They really played it down and really played it like it didn't really exist. It's all in your mind, it's in your head. So I think that affected me more than whether it was masculine or feminine or male or female. I don't think I even realized at the time it was one more than the other.
I could just be totally off the base because I've been medical gaslit for so long.
Yeah.
That part of me begins to wonder if it's not gender-based.
Absolutely.
With medical gaslighting.
I think from memory, it probably was gender-based. More women had it than men. The common sort of ground tended to be high achievers, people who worked hard, who were climbing the corporate ladder, who were in that space, tended to be the people who got it the most at that time. I don't believe that's true now, and I don't probably even believe it was true then, but that was the sort of thing they were saying at the time.
That was the narrative they were putting around it, unfortunately, because a lot of people suffered and still suffer from that stigma of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah, I think when, certainly in those days, and even probably till to even now, when the medical realm, the Western medical world doesn't understand something, they desperately try to push it away from themselves and push blame onto something else or someone else other than, oh, we just don't understand and therefore, we don't know what to do. So rather than own it, they push it back onto people or away and go, it's just in your mind. There's nothing really going on because we can't see anything going on. So I can tell you right now, there's definitely something going on.
Absolutely. I've said that more than once too, especially in the early days. So as you began to cope and deal with your chronic fatigue, take us a little bit further down the path of some of the moments where you had these aha moments that helped you recover.
Yeah, absolutely. I think after the initial sort of shock of it and that I was now at home, and really the first sort of moment I had once I was now permanently disabled, if you will, or in a compromised position at home, I couldn't work. I really couldn't go out anywhere. I couldn't have any stimulus of any sort. So I couldn't watch the telly or listen to the radio or talk to anyone on the phone so I was really this isolated, trapped person now. And that was a pretty strange moment. And I think my first sort of epiphany was that no one's coming to save me. No one's coming to give me any idea of what I had, because I didn't know I had chronic fatigue at the time, right? I had no idea what I had. And by now I'd seen probably 3 different doctors. They'd all given me the same non-diagnosis. And I was left to my own devices. And I had a moment, I remember, where I said, okay, there's 2 options here. Or I feel there's 2 options, right? Because I didn't know whether this was life-threatening or whether, who knows, no one knew what it was. So I said, okay, I've got 2 choices. Either I die or I survive. They're my 2 choices. What do I choose? And I made a very purposeful choice to heal from this, to go, no, I'm not, this is not the end. I'm not giving up. If everyone else has given up on me, I'm not giving up on me. And if no one else can heal me, I'm going to have to heal myself. So I'm just going to have to do that. And so there was a very purposeful decision to do that.
That's the common theme that in all of the survivor to thriver stories that I've done, the common theme is 2-part. One is, I'm on my own here. I'll have to figure it out. I'll do it myself type of mentality.
Totally.
But also I've heard people, and this is my category, is I'll show you, because I was told terrible statistics, and like I was given a diagnosis and then terrible statistics, and you're going to end up as one of these horrible statistics. And it was that moment of, yeah, no, I'll show you. My mother will tell you it's a horrible thing to raise a child who does the I show you, the polarity responder thing. But I actually have found that I use it to my advantage a lot in life.
Totally. And I think I've done the same through my life. I remember my mum told me a story when I was born. I was a breech baby and came out backwards, and my legs and hips were not in a good way. And I had to have lots of physio as a baby to repair, to get them moving properly. And the doctors said to my mum, your son's going to be okay. He'll be fine eventually. But there's 2 things he'll never, ever do. 1 is he'll never be a hurdler. 2 is he'll never ski, snow ski. With that in mind, I hurdled for my state. I became a member of the Australian ski team. I represented my country. So I'm a little bit like you. If they say I can't do it, then I go, I'm definitely going to do it.
Right, exactly. I'd love to know down in the comments, if you're watching this or listening to it, wherever you are, if that's part of your survivor to thriver story audience, that would be wonderful to know, because I have found that is a very common trait among many of the people I've interviewed over the last decade. Having that is a wonderful trait. Now, it can be incredibly frustrating to the medical community. I know that.
Totally, because you never take no for an answer.
Right, exactly.
And if they say that's it, that we can't do anything, it's okay, I'll show you. I'll prove that you can do something. And that was certainly my journey as well.
So what are some of the things you did?
Yeah. So look, I think the very first thing was that I resigned myself to the fact no one was going to come and save me, and that there was no solution to this, certainly in the immediate term, that I could see or anyone could show me. So I thought to myself, okay, I can't do a lot, but what can I do? I can't go out, I can't talk to people, I can't watch telly, I can't do any normal activities. So what can I do? And really the only thing that came up at the time was I can meditate. And I went, okay, that's what I'm going to do. So I ended up meditating 4 or 5 hours a day, because that's really all I could do. And
were you a meditator before?
No.
Or it's a whole new thing?
No, this was a pretty new thing. The only thing I'd been shown when I was in the Australian ski team, the sports psychologist showed us a process they called this active visualization, and which was really meditation, which they said, okay, what you do is you imagine, close your eyes, relax, imagine walking down some stairs into a cellar underneath a house. And in the cellar, we want you to imagine a beautiful couch, and then we want you to imagine a video screen, and we want you to sit there and watch yourself winning races. So play the race out, whatever race you've got coming up, play the race out. And so that's the only thing I knew. So I thought, okay, I'll just do that, because that seems like meditation. And rather than watching myself race, I'll watch myself getting well and being healed. So I did that for 4 to 5 hours a day, I would think. A lot.
That is a lot, but it worked.
Yeah, it certainly started the process, and it started to, I think, stabilize my mental state from a state of hopelessness and, oh my God, what am I going to do, to, okay, let's just get focused on the sort of job at hand. Let's just start this process of healing in a way. Even though I kept getting worse and worse for a bit longer, I stayed pretty focused on that. And from there, some really amazing things appeared and happened, and I was guided to follow various paths and learn different things, and I was given a whole lot of information about healing and health and wellness and the universe and all sorts of things, quantum physics, and there's a whole lot of things I was gifted through that process that then really started the healing for me. And then, of course, a number of serendipitous things appeared. And in particular, a friend of mine said, I know someone who's got something similar to you, and they've called it chronic fatigue syndrome. And I'm like, okay, what is, I don't know what that is. I met with this person who had chronic fatigue or had been diagnosed with chronic fatigue. And that led into a whole lot of other things that opened up a world of natural therapies. I was linked in with a beautiful integrative medicine doctor called Dr. Brighthope, which I think is a beautiful name for a doctor, right?
Beautiful name. Great name.
Yeah. And so eventually I went to see him, and he then started to talk to me about nutritional medicine and vitamin therapy and a whole range of things. And that sort of gave me the next sort of jump of hope. He diagnosed it. He said, this is what you've got, and we have quite a bit of success with people, and here's the protocol we're going to put you on. And I kept meditating at the same time and downloading or receiving lots of information about myself and the universe and how I could heal. And so I started healing emotional issues. I started healing family issues. I started to heal on a sort of a multidimensional level. And I think a lot of these types of issues or illnesses or situations are multidimensional. It's not just now you're sick. It's actually your whole diet is not nutritional enough to support you, plus your emotions, plus past traumas, plus all of these sort of aspects that came together and collide together to create this type of illness that I had. And so I started working very much multidimensional and tackling things from every angle possible to create healing in a very quick period of time compared to a lot of people.
I've heard that too. And from my own history is that I started the show just 4 months after my diagnosis, mostly
Wow.
because I wanted to learn about it myself. And I figured, well, if I want to know, maybe other people do too, right?
Yeah, perfect.
So I
Perfect.
started the show. But when I started, it was definitely just the physical layer,
Yeah,
talking to medical professionals, just the physical layer. How do I fix my skin? How do I fix a
yeah,
headache? Whatever it is.
yeah,
As I got to know more and more people, which is what I love about the shows, I've just met amazing people such as yourself, just sharing that healing is more than just the physical level.
totally.
I began to explore and get introduced to people who would talk about healing from childhood trauma or healing
Yes,
from all sorts of things going on, healing the family dynamic, and that helped
totally,
them take a jump in their recovery. It was amazing to me.
totally.
My journey of learning that healing is multidimensional took a longer, different path, but it's the same
Yeah,
path that led to the
totally,
same place. Like healing is
totally.
just not the physical level.
Totally. And I think this is where I learned to flip the narrative from I got chronic fatigue to I gave myself chronic fatigue, because then I had some control over it. Okay, if I gave it to myself, then I must be able to reverse that. I must be able to ungive it to myself. If it just happened to me, if I'm just a victim in this, then it's very hard to heal. It's very hard to then go, okay, now how do I navigate that? So I flip the narrative to, okay, this is something I gave me. And as I look at the path that I've wandered on since and now here with you, I actually am very grateful that I gave myself chronic fatigue syndrome, because I wouldn't be here if it hadn't. And I wouldn't have been able to help so many people and help heal others and share the gifts I've been given and the information I've found and the research I've done. I wouldn't be able to share that now. I am grateful for it, but I think flipping narrative is really important. And for me, it was very empowering.
I like the idea of switching the narrative because it's very empowering. But
Yeah.
boy, it would take a lot of grit to a lot of resilience to switch the narrative on like that. It's amazing that you were able to. Did it switch happen quickly once you decided that? Was it a decision and bam? Or
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was part of that decision of, okay, everyone's given up on me, so the only person who's going to heal me is me. And then through the exploration of that more multi-dimensional reality, I realized that, okay, everything and anything that comes to me or comes in my sphere of reality, I've played a role in attracting that, in materializing that in my world. Therefore, I've materialized chronic fatigue to help me to get out of an environment that I really didn't want to be in, into a place that my mission and my purpose in life. And that gave me a lot of fulfillment. That created a lot of depth. And I think as I meditated, the more I meditated, the deeper I went within. And, I got to a very deep space, to a space where my brain actually stopped thinking. So there was a number of months when my brain stopped thinking and I just became this being in the universe. And it was just a phenomenal, incredible experience to have that. And part of the stopping of thinking was the meditation, but also the illness itself. I was so fatigued, my brain stopped the ticker tape that runs in the back of the mind constantly telling us things, and that stopped. And so all I had left was a deep connection to the universe, an incredible connection to the universe. And so many insights just appeared from that space. It was amazing. It was incredible.
wow. We need to
Yeah.
take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to talk more with Marcus about what those insights are because I'm completely fascinated by the ability that we have within us to heal. And it's always fascinated me, people's pathways to finding that. So we'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to the Autoimmune Hour. I'm Sharon Sayler, and I'm here with Marcus Bird. And he is a creator, a channel, and a coach. And he is called the Wellness Futurist or an Activator Healer Coach. And as you can tell, he's someone who's actually walked the walk, been through the slog, as we say, and
Yeah.
been able to find his way out the other side. Now, in these deep meditative states you're talking about, and you're also talking about, in my mind, it sounds like stopping the monkey chatter. When did you realize that you had made to me, a major shift to be able to channel and understand things at a much deeper level than before?
I think there are a couple of things that happened, and I don't know how deep you want to go here, but I'm happy to go deep if you
Well, let's
like.
dive in the deep end,
You
Marcus. We're
know,
here.
yeah, okay, let's do that. There were a couple of things that happened. One was during my meditations. I mean, the process that my brain just stopped thinking, running that ticker tape in the background was pretty organic. It just happened. And I think it happened because of the illness, but also because of the amount of meditation I was doing. I think they were two things that sort of created that opportunity. And that allowed me to connect really deeply with the universe. And, what you might consider unusual things started to appear where I would meditate next to a tree and it would be like the tree was talking to me, like there was this organic information that was flowing from the tree. But probably the most profound experience during the meditation was that one morning when I was meditating, and again, I used to walk down the stairs and go into the cellar. One day that cellar had turned into a pyramid. And I walked into a pyramid rather than a cellar. The movie screen was there, the chair was still there, but the building itself or the environment was in the shape of a pyramid. And at the time, I didn't know anything about pyramids apart from what they taught us at school, right? They were in Egypt, they were tombs for pharaohs, and they just were super cool, right? That's about all I knew,
Exactly. That's about all I
right?
know about him. So
Yeah.
I'm on bated breath here to find out. I can't imagine in the meditations going along I'm saying then all of a sudden
Yeah, all of a sudden,
there's a
out of,
pyramid.
yeah. There was no premeditated thought about pyramids. There was nothing. I was just minding my own business, doing my normal routine that I was now doing, which was meditating early in the morning. And all of a sudden I'm in a pyramid and I'm thinking to myself, this is strange and a bit weird. But I thought, oh, who cares, right? It's a pyramid. So what? It's either a cellar or a pyramid. Does it really matter? No, it doesn't. So I'll just be here in a pyramid. And after a couple of weeks of being there in a pyramid, a whole lot of things started to shift and change. I started to turn the table on healing. Even up until now, I was still going into that getting worse type of feeling. And that's partly the sort of healing crisis type sort of thing. I stopped all bad foods. I went fully organic. I went filtered water. All of these things had started to happen. And I think this was one of the turning points. And I'm in the pyramid, again, minding my own business. And quite by sudden, this sort of apparition or this being stepped into the pyramid in front of me and sat opposite me. And again, this might sound weird and strange, but lots of serendipitous moments and amazing things unfolded from this moment on. And this sort of apparition or this being sat there and said that in 2 weeks, I'm coming back with another being and we're going to give you some information you need to take to the planet. It's information about healing for you, but it's also information about healing for others. And again, at the time, and this was a voice, not my voice. Sometimes when you hear things, it comes through your own voice. This was not my voice. This was a totally separate voice. And so I just went, okay, sure, whatever. And I'm sick and I'm thinking, oh, this is just fun. I'm just making stuff up. And 2 weeks to the day that happened, the other being came through the pyramid and they sat down and started talking to me about what they needed me to transcribe. And they just started talking about amazing things about the universe, about planets, about civilizations throughout the universe, about quantum physics, about maths, about healing, about the human body, so many things. And this went on every single day for years and years, actually. But in particular, around this time, it went on for a long time, quite intensely. And I was just being a good scribe, writing information down, drawing pictures, writing out maths. And maths was my worst subject at school. And just following some of the instructions around health and healing and wellness and working with sort of systems of the body, working in the dimensional space, and really the core framework is around stabilizing the body in space and time, and that most illness is caused by a destabilization of some part of the body system, whether that's the energetic or emotional or physical system. There's a destabilization that occurs, and if you can restabilize that and reharmonize, then the resonant field starts to become complete again, and then the body starts to heal itself. So there was a lot of information around that sort of concept. And I took that on board, and that really started my healing process. But it wasn't probably until I'd got well enough that I was led down the path of kinesiology. And my beautiful, amazing Dr. Brighthope had suggested that, hey, we've had some success with kinesiology, this concept of kinesiology, and I knew nothing about any of these things. I'd never even seen a naturopath until this moment, right? So I went to a kinesiologist, and after 2 sessions, I was about 50% better from where I was at that point. I'd already started to get better, but I had a jump in betterment or wellness. I looked at this kinesiologist person and I went, I have no idea what you're doing. I don't know what's going on here. I had some information through this sort of channel experience about it, and that's, I think, guided these sort of things to happen. But I eventually got well enough that I went, I want to study this. I need to learn this sort of stuff, and I need to integrate this with everything I'm being given. And it really wasn't until a specific moment in time that I realized that what I was doing had some validity to it. Up until now, I thought I'm just making stuff up. This is just a bit of fun. I'm hearing voices, I'm seeing things, but it's just all make-believe, and who knows, maybe I'm tapping into the collective conscious, maybe, who knows what I'm doing. Had no idea. Until this day, I went to the kinesiology college and we had an exam, and I took a booklet that I'd written in that had hundreds and hundreds of pages of healing and stuff in it. And the examiner came from across the room and she put her hand on this booklet I had created, and she said, I have to read this. So she read it, and at the end of the exam, I said, have I got anything here? What is this that I'm doing? And she said, you have to show the head of school. So I went to the head of school, and she was very much a Mrs. McGonagall from like Harry Potter type person. She was beautiful, amazing, this beautiful hair and very wizardy sort of person, but a little scary at the same time, right? So she summoned me over at some point, and on the front of this booklet, they'd asked me to draw an image, a specific sacred geometry image. Again, I didn't know anything about sacred geometry at the time. And she said to me, you've got something I need to see. So I went, yeah, I do. So I handed her this booklet, and the minute she saw the cover, she started crying. And I thought, what have I done? This is bizarre. And we went and sat in her room, and for 2 or 3 hours, we talked about what had just happened. And she said she'd had a channeling experience 5 years earlier. And at the sort of towards the end of that, they said, you're going to meet a gentleman who's going to present this image to you, and he needs help to get this out to the world. And at that moment, I went, hang on a minute. This is too weird, too strange. There must be something going on. So we talked a bit about this experience. And from that moment, lots of serendipitous things happened. Things would appear in my letterbox. Things would appear in my house. Things would just materialize themselves. And a lot of weird, wonderful things started to happen because of that. And eventually, sort of to cut a long story short, I created a new sort of modality, which at the time was called dimensional therapy, that helped heal me and then started to help heal lots and lots of people. So I created a program or a course around it called dimensional therapy. It's now called Activator Healer Coach. And I started teaching. And as I got better and better and almost back to full health, I started teaching this sort of full time, and ran this course for about 7 years. And then we hibernated it after that because I don't think I was ready. The world wasn't ready at the time. I stayed in the wellness industry. I was a practitioner, had my own clinic, started to teach wellness professionals how to have a successful clinic. And then when the sort of COVID experience started, the messages came back again, and they said, this information we gave you is for this moment in time.
Wow. Okay.
And so now I'm teaching that again. So yeah, it's a strange, weird story, but there's way too many synchronistic, serendipitous events that happen that I can't deny it. And I didn't believe it for a long time.
I've heard this similar story before, so I'm understanding what's going
Oh,
on.
yeah, no.
But I've heard similar stories before, and even in my own healing journey, there have been times early on where something would happen. I'd meet someone, whatever,
Yeah.
or someone would say, I need to introduce you to, or I'd have insights.
Yes.
And I'd
Yes.
have this excuse, oh, I'm not ready yet, or I'm not the one, or whatever. And very quickly I learned you're never going to be ready for these experiences,
No.
these
Ever.
moments where
No.
things happen to you. You call them serendipitous. That I love
Yeah.
that word, but this idea of I I'd like to approach it now from the standpoint of I have no clue what's going to happen.
No. That's right.
I feel safe here, so let's just go for
Let's
it.
keep going. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So it changed my life, as you can imagine. And I have a very deep, profound understanding now about the universe and what's happening and what's playing out, and the whole concept of resonant fields, of harmony versus disharmony, stable versus destabilized, and how we can make a very profound difference to ourselves and to others with some of these concepts. It's definitely been hugely beneficial for me, but now thousands of people that I've either taught or applied this with. I've worked with lots of chronic fatigue, obviously people who have, given themselves chronic fatigue and had some beautiful successes amongst a whole range of other things in sort of the autoimmune world, but in a wide range of issues and problems. And now we have a whole lot of practitioners that are out in the world doing exactly this.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
If you were to just offer a couple of ideas on how to open the space up for transformation, or open the space up for allowing something to happen, what would you tell people that maybe you did or that you have since learned is something as a way to make space for healing, make space for change?
Yeah. Yeah, I think undoubtedly the quietening of the mind was my first step, and that definitely helped. Our minds are full of beliefs and stories and opinions and past traumas and all sorts of things that then create the environment that we're existing in. And most of the time, it is a personally created environment and is not necessarily related to a concept around truth. And truth's a really interesting concept because we tend to materialize a perceived reality around us rather than a more truthful reality. And so when you quieten the mind, when you can settle yourself back in and stabilize yourself, you can work more closely with the truth of what might be going on for you. And we have very much personal truths, and no two people's truths necessarily are the same. We have a collective truth that we're sitting here and it's 8:48 here in Australia and it's something 48 for you in North America. So we can agree on certain truths, and there are broader sort of dimensional realities of truth and universal sort of truths. And I think part of the journey for me was to find my truth beyond the perceived realities, beyond the creation of things in my world, and try and hold to that truth. And that's a very stable place to be. And it's not saying that my truth is the ultimate truth, the only truth, the best truth. It's just saying that rather than continually kidding myself or continually eluding or creating delusion for myself, I try as much as possible to hold an alignment and a stability within that truth for me. And certainly a lot of the teachings that are happening right now, because we are making what I would call a dimensional shift collectively at the moment. In the past, we have dimensionally shifted individually, like I did with chronic fatigue and my experience. I would call it dimensional shift. You mentioned it's a whole 180-degree shift. I think for me, that is very much a dimensional sort of shift that happened for me. I think right now we're going through a collective shift, and it's very much a consciousness collective shift. And a shift is into more of the truth. And this is why we're seeing more of the untruths play out. and the untruths that are playing out right now are really very obvious. And so we are moving in that way naturally. But I think from a stepping stone point of view, if someone can step into that stable, more truthful self, then you can get to a place of, okay, I gave this illness to myself for whatever reason, and you may not understand it in this moment. But if you hold that truth or potential truth, then eventually the purpose starts to appear. But also what else appears is the way forward. How do I move myself out of this dimension of reality where I am ill or sick or unable to function as a normal human being into a dimension and a reality or a truth where I can function normally, but maybe on a different path now, maybe in a different dimensional reality and a different truth. So I think calming the mind and stepping into that space can be really important. And I created a whole meditative series and process around the pyramid meditation that we often run in my Facebook group called Heart of the Matrix. But I have a whole sort of pyramid process, and I'm happy to give your listeners a free pyramid meditation that they can try. And with it's a guided meditation. And for two reasons. One is it will help to settle the mind. Two, the geometry, the sacred geometry of a pyramid, or more importantly, an octahedron, which is two pyramids base on base, is one of the most important geometries in the universe. There are pyramids throughout our planet that are here for a reason, and there are pyramids or these octahedron shapes on other planets throughout the universe that are also really important. The fact of meditating in that space is going to have a really profound effect on people, but also help them to stabilize the brain and stabilize into a more sort of expansive reality.
We're just down to about the last 6 minutes, which time flies. I'm just so fascinated by this, and the expansive reality is so intriguing and inviting to me.
Yeah.
I know you've written a couple of books, as well as share how we can get the meditation, and
Yeah.
also share some final thoughts. So if someone's saying, this is intriguing,
Yeah.
but I'm baffled, or I'm not quite sure what the next step is,
That's
share with
okay.
that.
It's okay to be baffled or bemused or intrigued, for sure. And I think one of the most important things is to begin to allow yourself to expand into that infinite possibility. Because if we look at quantum awareness and the quantum reality, potentially every possibility exists in every moment. And the minute you decide on a path, all of the other possibilities collapse in on themselves, and then the next possibility arrives. So if you're sitting there right now in the depths of this and feeling hopeless or helpless as to what to do, connecting into that opportunity of infinite possibility is still there with you, regardless of what's playing out. And that infinite possibility includes wellness, it includes sickness, it includes pain and suffering, but it includes joy and happiness. And to some degree, a large degree, you get to choose which way that plays out. And once you've made that choice, it's holding on to that choice, even if the practical experience around you isn't yet showing that. I know when I started meditating and started my journey of wellness, it took quite an amount of time before I saw proof of that. So I just had this dedication to the meditation and dedication to improving my diet and doing all of the things that I did, all of the healing that I was given and all of the information I was given. I dedicated to just applying that every single day. And for quite some time, nothing appeared, or it seemed like nothing was changing. And then all of a sudden it did. And I think half the battle is preparing to get well. I often say to my practitioners and to people, some of the work that we're going to do together is to prepare you to be well. Because so often people sabotage themselves into sickness and not into wellness, because they get into a state of hopelessness that no one can help me, no one's helped me so far, I'm just stuck with this forever. And so there's no getting someone into a state of wellness when they're in a state of unwellness or destabilization, as we like to say. So half the journey is to prepare yourself for wellness. And so I spent many months preparing myself for wellness, which was keeping to the pyramid meditation, continuing the tough diets that I was on, to continue the belief system, to continue to clear the emotions, to create a different reality. And we do have that power. We are master creators. Well, we can create our reality. We do create our reality. But sometimes reality creation is delayed. We are in a dimension right now where things are delayed, and thankfully they are, because if our thoughts instantly created what we were thinking, we'd be in all sorts of trouble, because we haven't got command of our consciousness yet. And part of my mission is to move 1% of the population to a cosmic conscious state, which is a state of more control over that consciousness, which means we can materialize things much, much faster, whether that's wellness or money or time or energy or clients or whatever it is you're looking to materialize. When you have control of your consciousness, then you can materialize things much, much faster. And stepping into the infinite possibility is an important state, and preparing yourself for wellness is part of that journey. Then you're not thinking, oh my God, I'm doing all this meditation, I'm not getting well, I should be getting well. It's no, you're still preparing yourself for wellness, because wellness tends to be this curve that nothing seems to happen for a long time sometimes. Feels not much is changing, even though it is. But because of the mindset you're in, because of the reality you're creating, you don't notice the shifts and changes. And then all of a sudden it seems to spike and it's, wow, all of a sudden I'm better or getting better. And it's, how did that happen? It's been happening. But you're preparing yourself for that moment where you do the 180-degree shift, where everything changes in your world.
I love that. We're going to have you back, Marcus, because I have so many questions, but we're just about out of time. I love all of these ideas, and thank you for sharing them with us. Share with the audience where they can find the meditation that you mentioned, as well as
Absolutely.
any other contact information you'd like to share.
Yeah, probably the best place to go is the Heart of the Matrix Facebook group. So that's my sort of public group, Heart of the Matrix. And if you search for that on Facebook and then request to join, I will let you in. We run live events all the time. I'm often sharing these concepts and healing tips and ideas. There's a whole lot of our healers and practitioners that are on that site. So if you do actually need help, there are amazing people there offering and helping. So that's probably the best place to go. If you go to my website, centerforquantumhealing.org, you'll be able to see the meditation there, the free meditation that you can download. I'll also provide you with a direct link to that meditation that you can put on the show reel, and you can click on that link. And they're probably the best places to go to interact and to find out more. And I obviously announce live events that I'm running in Heart of the Matrix, any sort of public events I'm running, and that would be a great place to interact and get to know each other a bit more and receive some of this information.
Thank you, Marcus, for sharing so much and sharing the possibilities. I think that's the important thing for people to know instead of staying stuck, is to
Yeah,
open your mind and explore possibilities. That,
absolutely. And anything's possible. Wellness is possible. It's all possible. And both you and I are living proof of that possibility.
oh, absolutely. I remember very specifically several doctors saying, "Why are you fighting it? Just get used to it. This is the diagnosis."
Don't you love that? Oh my
So
God.
helpful, right? And in my
Yeah,
case, it
really
was
helpful.
helpful because I spurred me on,
Yeah.
but I
Um,
don't think it's really helpful.
no,
Anyway,
it's not. But loved being here. Thank you so much for having me on the show, and thank you everyone for listening. And yeah, hopefully that helps.
thanks for sharing, Marcus. I love sharing multiple opportunities to visualize possibilities and other ways of being and thinking, because it's only then that we can change, and we can change our world is if we open up our minds and saying, I don't know, let's explore. So
Exactly.
let's
Perfect.
take a look.
Yay. Excellent.
So everyone, that's Marcus Bird, and we'll have his information up over at Understanding Autoimmune as well. And have a great week, whatever your adventures. Thanks for joining us. And if you're watching us on YouTube, if you would please kindly subscribe to the show. It helps us grow the show and get the message out in a much bigger way. If you're listening to the audio on the multiple channels that are available to you, please follow the show as well to get the algorithms going in a really positive direction. And let's make that happen. Marcus will envision the show
Yeah.
doing this steady growth and then watch us skyrocket. So please,
Let's make that
community,
happen.
be part of that journey for us. As I said, have a great week, whatever your adventures. Join me next week for another brand new show. Enjoy.
Only. The information should never be used for any legal, diagnostic, or treatment purposes.